They're about being a part of the solution. And I've had the opportunity to get to know them, to be inspired by them. And I hope that you get that same feeling that, you know what, if we make a space, a larger space at the table for youth and alumni in care, for their voices to be heard, if we make that a priority, we might be able to move forward this movement around bettering child welfare, not just on a national scale, but on a global scale, a lot faster. So again, I said I'd be brief, so I'd like to introduce our MC for the luncheon, Lilia Zahareva. Lilia is originally from Sofia, Bulgaria, and she currently resides in Canada. She is one of the young leaders who helped plan this event in my living room 6 months ago. And I just want her to take a moment to look out and see what we accomplished. Lilia?
I'd like to welcome everyone to the International Summit of Youth in Care. And yes, I'm glad that Latrice mentioned that because I remember in December, I went to Washington, D.C. And first I was contacted and someone said, why don't you come to Washington? And being from British Columbia, Canada, I thought, great, it's just a couple of hours away. Little did I know, I would end up flying across the country, which included getting lost by myself in Las Vegas. So you can imagine that was quite an interesting experience. I won't speak on that later. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. But here I am, back at the event, and for the first time now that I'm in Washington, D.C., I've seen more than a whiteboard. Hopefully I'll even get to see the White House this time. So that would be very nice. I'd like to take this moment to do something very, very special. I'd like to welcome the first Multigenerational Forum of the inaugural International Summit of Youth in Care. And I'd like the 30 incredible, talented, motivating delegates to please stand. And can we all give them a round of applause? Okay, I think we need better applause here. Okay, and while you're still standing, there's something really, really important I'd like to say. One thing that's been asked of us all week is, how many years have you been in care? What was your status as a youth in care? And one number that we didn't acknowledge is not how many years you were in care, but how many years of your life have you devoted to advocacy? How many years of your life have you devoted to helping people who are coming after you? And how many endless months and how many sacrifices have you made to make your communities locally and globally a better place? So I want another round of applause for those years. We're so much more than youth in care. And to me, those are the years to acknowledge because they're the ones that are truly going to define us in this moment and in the future. Thank you so much. Another thing that I'd like to acknowledge is that we've had a few wonderful experiences with expert panels. And the people that are here as allies today to support us are so committed and so incredible that more than once, and from more than one of these individuals, I've heard, why do you want to listen to us? You guys are the experts. And I think that speaks so much to the commitment and to the heart that our allies bring to us. So if they could stand, please. Our adult allies in the room. Some of you may be known as geezers, recycled teenagers, our support staff. And you've supported us tirelessly throughout this week. Some of you have traveled from across the pond to be here, and we're so, so appreciative. So now I'm going to introduce a very special speaker. I'd like to welcome Brian Samuels to the stage, please. Now, as Brian comes up, I'm just going to say a couple of words about Brian, and hopefully he'll be able to take over and we can hear it from his mouth. But Brian Samuels is the Commissioner for the Administration on Children, Youth, and Families. The Administration for Children and Families and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So either I'm mangling that or it's an incredibly long and prestigious title. So either way, I'm so impressed. And Brian, in reading a little bit about the work that you've done, the reputation that you have in the community is of being an innovator, of being incredibly diligent. And I know that in one of your positions you reduced residential care by 20%. And deinstitutionalization is something we've talked about. So let's give a round of applause for that. It's just one of your many incredible accomplishments. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
Move over to the light. We're having that light got down for the slideshow so that our little further forward. Thank you.
If you want, I can join you. We can do-si-do a little bit.
How's that?
Too.
So, good afternoon. The first thing I want to say to everybody in the room and those who are participating online is congratulations. This is a huge accomplishment. It is unfortunate that the experience of abuse and neglect is an international phenomenon. That's unfortunate for that. But the strength and courage that everybody in the room has demonstrated, both in exiting the foster care system and still believing that you had a contribution to make, but then all showing up here and doing the work that you've done this week is an incredible accomplishment, and you ought to know that from somebody who cares about your work. So I want to affirm the contribution that you've made to the child welfare system. Here in the United States, I am the commissioner, which means that I'm responsible for the programs and funding related to child welfare in the United States, so it's a unique position. I also have the responsibility for programs that address the needs of the runaway and homeless youth population, as well as work on domestic violence and intimate partner violence. And so it's really a unique opportunity to not just think about the risk and challenges for young people who are aging out of foster care, but also thinking about the risk and challenges for young people who are runaway and homeless. And as many challenges as there are with reforming the child welfare system so it produces better results for young people, there are real challenges for the young people who are living on the streets and who are sleeping on others' couches and don't have the benefit of any support and don't have the benefit of any rights to services and supports. And so I think as we think universally about these challenges, we got to change foster care, but we also have to change the societies and the communities that we have that say it's okay for the runaway and homeless youth population to be out there isolated with the absence of even the benefits of child welfare. So I think if we're going to think about these issues universally and we're going to address them internationally, I think we ought to be thinking about all vulnerable youth and how we use the work that you're doing as the beginning of a process of changing the way governments across this world deal with all vulnerable youth. So that's just my own editorial. So I'll make 2 points and then I'll get out of your way. The one reason why I think this meeting is important, and the one thing that I'd like you all to think about as you go back to your countries and do this work, is one of the things that I suspect you got confirmed during this week is that you're not alone. It is easy for young people who age out of foster care to feel like they're on their own and to feel isolated and to think that there is no community of support out there. And what you have begun here and what you can take back to each of your countries is the sense that none of you are alone, and that building a network of mutual support is as important a thing for you to do going forward as it is to try to change the child welfare system. Because every day, at least in this country, every year, over 270 children exit the foster care system. Thankfully, most of them are leaving with families, but they nonetheless move through and out of the system. And so you building a system of mutual support so that no one has to be isolated after they've exited the foster care system is really critical. And I really encourage you to give that consideration. And then the last thing that I would say, and I hope that to learn more about your recommendations, is I believe what's missing from the child welfare system in this country, and I suspect in other countries also, is a real commitment not just to intervening, but a real commitment to supporting healing and recovery. Right? Is we can do more services. We can get you more families. We can find you all mentors. We could do all of that stuff. But if there isn't an element of healing and recovery for all of us, then exiting foster care, regardless of permanency or not, won't have addressed the fundamental issue